Hello, I'm Nancy Wilmot in Port Alberni, deep in the heart of Vancouver Island. Welcome to Our Canada on Shaw. Behind me is the Alberni Inlet. This is a 25-mile-long fjord that connects us to the Pacific Ocean. And Port Alberni was built by the fishing and logging industries. We're a diverse community. Right now, Port Alberni is preparing for the arrival of its first family of Syrian refugees. And just like everyone that's come before them, I know they'll be welcomed with open arms. This also ties in nicely with today's show, where we have a collection of stories on Syrian refugees and the efforts being made to support them in various ways. We'll also learn some facts about Syria that you may not have known. But we do have a full show. So let's get started with Kate Bergen's story out of Nanaimo about a coalition of organizations, businesses, churches, and individuals who joined together to prepare the way and welcome refugees to Canada.
It was an image that galvanized the world. A 3-year-old boy whose family was fleeing Syria, lying lifeless on a Turkish shore.
It's not new, and it's not something that, you know how stories come out, and so you respond in the moment, but we're hoping that this goes on, and we can do far more than these 25,000 we've been talking about.
The Trudeau government has committed to welcoming 25,000 Syrian refugees to Canada by the end of February. The newly formed Nanaimo Community Refugee Sponsorship is a coalition of individuals and groups who have committed to doing what they can to help refugee families find a future. Anne, a member of Brechin United Church, called out for support in mid-September. Many local churches and individuals stepped forward. The group of people in this photo are waiting for their sponsored family to arrive. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be in 6 weeks from now.
We didn't even get the names. It was just, mother, father, daughter, son, ages, a little bit about their education, their work, and we noticed that on many of the list of refugees, they indicated whether they had severe medical problems or issues that had to be dealt with, health issues that had to be dealt with.
After completing and submitting required paperwork, the group received a little more information about their family. They're from Al-Qusair in Syria.
So then we went online and we looked at the community, and you sort of see a before and after. And before, the community was quite a lovely community in northern Syria, and then after, it's a real sort of bombed out.
Tony Davis is here today wearing 2 hats. He's a member of the Nanaimo Community Refugee Sponsorship and the Assistant Refugee Coordinator for the Anglican Diocese of British Columbia.
I responded to Anne's call for people who were interested in sponsorship, and at the same time everything was ramping up. The single person down at the Anglican Diocese in Victoria was totally overwhelmed by the response, so they brought on 2 assistants, one for Victoria and the islands, and myself for central and northern Vancouver Island.
Canada is unique, Mike says. The country has a fairly sophisticated process of private refugee sponsorships that date back to the early 70s with the arrival of Vietnamese refugees. The NCRS will be responsible for the family for 1 year. Interpreters will be needed, clothes, housing. They arrive with nothing. Tony helped a Palestinian family come to Nanaimo in 2014.
I found the experience when we brought the family in, the Palestinian family in, and they'd been in refugee camps for 6 years, was exhilarating. It was very rewarding to be able to take this mother, father, and 4 children, ranging from 9 through to 6 months, and give them a new home, and to get the response from them to realize that we had provided them with a future.
It's a calling, it's a must. It's a recognizing all that we have here in Canada, and you absolutely have to get involved and absolutely have to respond.
The support the NCRS has received from the community has been encouraging. The Central Island Multicultural Society, the Islamic community, doctors, dentists, the city, and many individuals have come together to welcome some of Nanaimo's newest residents to Canada whenever they arrive. For more information and to help, email welcomenanaimo@gmail.com. For Go on Shaw TV, I'm Kate Bergen.
Вы смотрите «Наша Канада» на шоу. You're watching Our Canada on Show.
Next, we're going to travel to Campbell River, where Marjorie Greaves met with Meryl Awad, who, along with her family, came to Canada in 2009. From her restaurant, Meryl is going to tell us a few things about Syria that you may not have known. We'll follow this by going to Dryden, Ontario, where Tommy Johnson meets with a former refugee who, along with the local Syrian Refugee Committee, is working to bring a family of 6 refugees to Canada.
Throughout the years, Syria accepted more than 6 million refugees. Even though Syria's size is almost the same of this island, like Vancouver Island size, a little bit bigger. But we held more than 6 million refugees from all around. Lebanon, Palestinian, and from Kuwait, when Kuwait have war, and Iraqian, finally. Now Syrians are going around the world because ISIS is destroying Syria. Some of the countries are welcoming and some are not. Sometimes I feel so painful inside my heart that Syrians have to face this fate. I wish everyone will just take a look back and study or read a little bit of the Syrian history, and they will know what is this people made from, or what is their background, so they know how to welcome them, and they know if they want to welcome them or not.
Displaced with no place to call home. For many, it's hard to even imagine. For over 2.5 years, this family of 6 have been living as refugees in northern Iraq. But soon, with the help of some large-hearted citizens of Dryden, this is about to change.
In life, I believe that people who can give are privileged, and people who can have an open heart are privileged.
One of those helping to lead the charge to bring this family to Canada is Ghada Ibrahim, a local dentist who, in her early teens, became a refugee herself during the Iraqi-American War.
I can't turn my back. I was a refugee at some point in my life, which was 23 years ago. And once I realized I can actually help, because a lot of times there are refugees in the world by the millions, and as myself or my community or my country, we can't do anything for them. But once the Canadian government opened the door and we had people who are willing to donate their time and their money and effort, it was a no question. It means the world to me.
Along with a committee of 10 members, the work has now begun to bring this family to Dryden by the end of February. In the meantime, however, support is needed to help make this possible.
Giving back to that family and helping them out is just a small part of me saying thank you, not only to Canada, but to everybody that ever lent a helping hand to me. This is the way anyone should do it. You get help in the past or in the future, and then you help other people. Life is all give and take. Dryden is welcoming. And that's my personal experience, and I've fundraised before for other causes, and I've experienced Dryden myself as a health professional. The doors are open, the hearts are open, people are fun, trusting, Everybody in Dryden is very supportive. It's a lot of work, but people's hearts are big, and they understand the struggles of these families and the big need to help somebody like that.
From now until the family arrives, the committee is looking for monetary donations, living supplies, and more. To find out how you can help, search Dryden Syrian Refugee Committee on Facebook.
A lot of people feel reluctant about bringing refugees into Canada, and the media created a lot of fear. But there's good and bad in everybody, and there's political turmoil all the time. This is a purely humanitarian effort. These people are the victims of the people we worry about, or we are worried about in general. They suffered the same thing anybody else in the world suffers on the hands of dictatorships, or on the hands of terrorism, or on the hands of injustice in general. I don't want to label it. But these people are pure victims, and they will be great addition to Dryden, but in general to Canada, because we are a welcoming country, and we have open and big hearts, and we are peaceful people, and we believe in helping. That's what makes us special all around the world, I think, and I believe that.
Many cities across Canada are welcoming refugees from war-torn Syria. Recently, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan welcomed 144 refugees, including 25 families. In our next story, Janella Hamilton introduces us to one of those families seeking safety and medical care for their children.
5-year-old Akram is living with Down syndrome. His sister Dua needs surgery in her left eye and has problems walking. And while these serious medical issues may seem overwhelming for most families, the Rahma family is just happy to be alive.
We had to leave because the war started. Even the building in which we were residing, it was hit by a bomb. Yeah, it's very scary. Even there are no words really could explain the situation.
According to BBC News, more than 250,000 Syrians have lost their lives in 4.5 years of armed conflict. More than 11 million have been forced from their homes. Fearing for the lives of their children, the Rahma family, along with help from the United Nations, moved to Canada on December 18, 2015. Shortly thereafter, they arrived at their new home, this Saskatoon apartment building.
There was a war, destruction and killing. I think that the real thing is even worse than we see in television here.
By the end of February, the city expects to receive 408 Syrian refugees. Arriving in Saskatoon less than a month ago, the family has had enough time to furnish their small apartment with the basic necessities to live. Their English is still very limited, but with the help of interpreter Ali Hassan, they are able to share their story with us.
We feel very happy here, and at least this is the most important thing, that we feel safe. Yeah, we were looking to find a place where they respect the human being.
Since stepping off the plane, the family has received endless support from local organizations.
Saskatoon Open Door Society is the main agency that receives all the refugees that come in that are given to us by the Canada Immigration Center.
Zainab from the Open Door Society, she helped us to go to the market and to choose the furniture, bed, sheets and everything.
Settling into their new home, the family is excited to see what their future holds in Canada, especially 7-year-old Dua, who is looking forward to finally going to school.
I'm really happy, and it's much better than what I suffered before. I like to learn the language first and then go to school, because before the schools were very expensive, we couldn't go to school.
I've seen families that came here that hardly had anything, and now their children are professionals. So it is so unbelievable that how the quality of life of these refugees actually have improved.
The family's first priority is to learn English, but for now, Dalia has picked up at least one very important phrase.
Weather is very good.
For Shaw, I'm Janella Hamilton in Saskatoon.
Winters can be very cold in most of Canada and very wet here on the coast. But what's it like in Syria? Similarities might surprise you. In Dryden, Ontario, there's a campaign underway to fit many of the refugees who have never experienced a Canadian winter with something that many of us take for granted, a nice warm toque.
A lot of people ask me, oh, it's too cold here in Canada for you. Well, actually not, because in Syria, we do have cold weather. We do have rain, we do have snow, we do have mountains, we do have rivers, lakes, and etc. So almost the climate here and in Syria, almost the same.
I've dealt with children most of my career, and I know that having a warm hat makes the difference between being comfortable outside and not being comfortable outside. When I taught elementary school, I was that teacher saying, do up your coat, put your mitts on, where's your hat?
Former grade school teacher Jerry Powell knows the importance of what a nice warm toque means in the cold Canadian winter. So when she found out about a campaign to put a toque on refugee families arriving in Canada, she was all in.
There was this little bit on CBC about this woman named Danielle Letourneau in Quebec City, or Montreal rather, who decided it would be a really good gesture, a really nice Canadian gesture, to present each Syrian refugee with a toque. And so she came up with this idea, 25,000 toques, because the target was 25,000 refugees. And so I thought, well, I could make a toque and send it to her. And I thought, well, I could make more than one toque. And then I could get all my friends to make a toque. And I just thought, well, why couldn't we do this from Dryden? I know we're a small city, but we are accepting 2 Syrian families here. And you know, I read the statistic that 50% of the refugees are going to be children. I'm thinking, wow, they're going to need headwear. They're going to need toques. So I just put it out there. More bigger ones and smaller ones and ones with braids. And how Canadian is this, eh? Maple leaf.
Known as the 25,000 toque campaign, communities and individuals across the country have been knitting and donating winter headwear since late fall, with the hopes that every new citizen arriving to Canada receives a new toque to stay warm.
The thought of some kid, you know, not having something warm to put on just bothered me. Really, I haven't exerted this great amount of effort. I just put the word out.
With the generosity of the community, Powell now has close to 150 toques that are ready to be sent out to support the campaign. To find out more about the 25,000 toque campaign, search 25,000 toques on Facebook.
I know that it's just like resonated with the country. Like there's people in BC knitting, and Nova Scotia and Alberta and Manitoba, and I'm just so taken aback, and I'm so thrilled. These ones, these are, I know the lady who made 8 of these, and like she's well into her 80s doing this, and I'm thinking that's just a wonderful gesture. It just makes me smile. Our contribution to the big picture, you know, that's I think what makes us very Canadian.
For Our Canada in Dryden, Ontario, I'm Tommy Johnson.
Влепите до Канада Master Shaw. You're watching Our Canada on Shaw.
$25,000 toques. That is amazing. As a shout out to all the fine knitters who have contributed to this program so far. Now, Lisa Pismeni traveled from Victoria to the Cowichan Valley to meet the very first refugee family to arrive on Vancouver Island. Here's that story now.
A typical December day on the island. Rain, wind, and people braving the elements. But today, This family is seeking more than just shelter from the weather.
She's She's afraid in the same time, afraid, and in the same time she's feeling comfortable.
Two mothers and a boy traveling more than 10,000 kilometers, a world away from their hometown in Syria, each struggling with their own trauma of war. But on this day, their healing takes a big step forward. Inside the Cowichan Intercultural Center, they receive a warm welcome. It was at times an emotional day for the family. 29-year-old Fatin Dukan, her 9-year-old son Muhammad, and her 58-year-old mother telling their story through an interpreter. The boy's father died in a bomb attack in Syria. His grandfather, a heart attack, leaving the two widows to flee the country seeking refuge in Lebanon.
Basically, they run away from one spot to other spot.
They are the first of the Syrian refugees to arrive on Vancouver Island, landing with very little but their memories.
Basically, they came with their clothing and her wedding ring, and everything's gone.
Fatin puts on a brave face for the family, handling most of the media questions.
She's hoping she will be adopted the culture here, and she's actually wishing she will be a part of this community. She's wishing of the community of Canada as a general to help her to in her journey here in Canada. With one of her brothers in Lebanon,
and that's exactly what the Mill Bay Baptist Church is doing. They are sponsoring the family and have found them a temporary home in the Cowichan Valley.
I would say they're adjusting extremely well. They're just so embracing of Canada and the opportunity they're being given.
These are temporary accommodations until permanent housing can be found, and helping with all the moving parts is the Cowichan Intercultural Society.
There's a lot of paperwork and things to get into place, healthcare and school enrollment and all of those pieces of the puzzle, so that really comes first. And then when they're ready, we have supports for trauma counseling or for any other services that they'll require.
We need to find them some permanent housing. I mean, even today we've been out shopping, bought new boots, we're going to get jackets afterwards, everything they need from underwear to socks.
And as for what the future holds for this family, the mother hopes to pursue more education.
She took the first aid in Lebanon to help in the war for that time, and she wants to continue to do the same job and learn more, and she wants to be a nurse.
And for young Muhammad, the future is filled with endless possibilities.
He's going to his first hockey game tomorrow night.
The beginning of a happier, safer journey. In Duncan, I'm Lisa Bismeni for Shaw TV.
We are so fortunate to live in a peaceful country where it's unimaginable that we'll ever have to flee our homes for safety because of war. And yet millions of people from Syria and other countries around the world have had to do just that, saying goodbye to friends and family in a heartbreaking ordeal. Dunya Tozy in Vancouver has this refugee story.
لم يعرفوني في الظلال التي تمتص لوني في جواز السفر.
They didn't recognize me in the shadows that suck away my color in this passport. They're words from renowned Arab poet Mahmoud Darwish that always resonate with Mohammed Saleh, a refugee from Syria.
وكان جرحي عندهم معرضا لسائح يعشق جمع الصور.
The poem is a symbol of Muhammad's journey, a journey from his war-torn home of Homs in Syria to Canada last November.
Coming from a war-torn country, leaving the country was not an option. I had to. This is something which was forced on millions of Syrians. I was one of them.
The 26-year-old former med school student was one of the first protesters to march in the Syrian revolution that started back in 2011. Mohammed says he's seen it all, from the death of family and friends to the destruction of his hometown.
It's really hard. It's heartbreaking to see that happening. There are no enough words to describe how bad it is in the country. The whole world has or have seen the horrifying night in Paris. Those sad events have been happening on a daily basis in Syria for the last 4 years.
It was an agonizing decision, but Mohammed had to leave his home, his family, and his medical education. Through the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees organization, he was one of the first Syrian refugees placed in Canada.
Canada chose me, and I'm glad that Canada welcomed me and gave me this opportunity to have this really nice start over.
The jubilation and excitement quickly turned into anxiety and culture shock when he arrived at the refugee welcome house. But that changed the next day.
I met some people, talked to them, went to Starbucks for the first time in my life. The amount of smiles that you get from everyone, the hugs, the positive attitudes, the words welcome that you get from everyone. It really helps people to go through the process and to overcome all the challenges.
Mohammed tried to get into medical school here in Canada, but was told he would have to start from scratch. So he decided to pursue a diploma in healthcare at Drake Medox College. He focused on finding a job, gaining work experience, and improving his English. And there was no place more helpful than the Vancouver Public Library.
So you spent a lot of time here, for sure. It's kind of like your home, isn't it?
Yeah, in a way you can say that. I used to come here right after my English classes and study here in the library. The first card that I gained here in Canada was the library card.
And the first book he took out was this book by poet Mahmoud Darwish. It helped him cope and remain positive. He also took advantage of valuable free workshops.
One of the services that I found so helpful are the job search workshops on the 4th floor.
We have programs such as our job search tour, where people can come in and spend a couple hours with an expert who will help them find information about their field that they want to work in. We offer Career Explorer workshops, and those are all designed to help people settle and integrate into the community.
Now, a year later, Mohammed is giving back to Canada by volunteering with the Immigrant Services Society as an interpreter, and hopes to take some time off school and work in the next few weeks to assist with the influx of new Syrian refugees. Because for Mohammed, becoming Canadian means embracing Canadian values.
I can say that I belong here. I owe my life to this country. In fact, I feel that I owe my life to each and every single Canadian, and I will do whatever it takes to help build a better future for this country.
In Vancouver, I'm Jenny Tozy for Go on Shaw TV.
You're watching Our Canada on Shaw.
I hope you enjoyed this special episode of Our Canada. To view past programs, please visit us online. It's been a pleasure being your host. I'm Nancy Wilmot in Port Alberni on Vancouver Island. So long for now.